So I would like to talk with you a little bit about the number one question for you if you're a developer in this space, which is what should I focus on? Meaning, what should you focus on? Or rather, how to go about thinking what should be your focus? Because I think that's always the number one question for us, right? We have very limited time and resources, and the question is, how are we going to use them? This is the scarcest resource, not money, but time. So if we look around, there's a lot of good news happening for crypto right now, right? The political sentiment is excellent. The market is on steroids. Everything is like really, really great. So this is definitely a time to be active within crypto. But in spite of all this good thing that's happening, and a lot of it is also happening on Starknet. We just reached a week ago TPS of over 800, which is the only L2 that can do this. Yeah. The question still remains, or rather the challenge, is that you still have things like fragmentation, and we have to admit that there's no global product market fit yet for all of blockchain, or there are very limited product market fits within things like maybe Bitcoin as a store of value, maybe stablecoin payments starting a little bit, and of course a lot of speculation, which leads us to the question of, your number one question in life should always be, what should you focus on? How do you make sense of this, and how do you go about reaching your decisions? So I think my best attempt at trying to help you could be by sharing, first of all, my story and how I came about, answering these questions for myself. And it's a very unique story, which probably not a lot of you share. But I hope that, if I tell you a little bit about the way I went about making my decisions, maybe it will give you some sort of inspiration. And so that's what I'll do. So my story is that I was doing research in math and theoretical computer science. And the reason I was doing this, or the motivation, if I ask myself, why was I doing math and research? The answer has to do with things like emotions, things like the elegance of math, and working in a field that has everlasting impact, right? Because if you prove a theorem, then it stays there forever. It's something new that you have advanced the world with. So that was what I was doing originally. And a lot of this math was related to making validity proofs, also known as ZK proofs, much more efficient. And the next phase in my career was that of, actually turning this theory into practice. And this happened between the years of roughly 2008 for a whole decade. And this was a time where the reasons I was doing what I was doing had to do with love of Bitcoin and its potential and of blockchains, and also a lot of conviction. And this conviction was done mostly when others didn't have this conviction. So I was an academic researcher, a professor of computer science, trying to convince the world that these proof systems actually have value in the real world. And this is what I was doing. And it was a very lonely journey, but it was one in which I had a lot of conviction that we're right about this. And this even happened in 3 phases. I fell in love with Bitcoin in 2013. That was the point in time when I realized that validity proofs, or ZK proofs, actually solve the 2 biggest problems of blockchain, which are scalability and privacy. And I was the first to realize this. This is 11 years ago, and this set me on a trajectory that brought me to you today. In 2014, we showed the first academic work that shows how you can use the privacy aspects of zero knowledge to shield Bitcoin payments, which led to the Zcash cryptocurrency, which I was one of the founders of. And I believed even more that the first product market fit for this technology should actually be in scaling, and that the kind of technology that you want to use is what later on we called Stark. So this was a period in which I had a lot of conviction for the real world impact of this beautiful, elegant, everlasting thing I did before. And then the next phase was basically proving it to the world, showing the world that the right way, the end game for scaling blockchains and solving their privacy has to go through zero-knowledge proofs, and in particular Starks. Now, if you go around and you listen to what everyone is talking about, be it the Ethereum roadmap that Justin Drake is sharing, or what other L2s are doing and saying that they will go to, it is all about using Starks and using alternative VMs that have a small number of constraints, aka Cairo, and using things like aggregation of proofs, which we innovated first, called Sharp. So a whole bunch of things that Starkware has invented and productized and convinced the world that these things are the right way to scale blockchains are now standard. Everyone adopts them and uses them. But I want to remind you that throughout a very long period of time, very few people had conviction and had to work very hard in something that was a little bit lonely, if you look at the whole ecosystem, in order to make this thing happen and everyone accept that this is the end game. So, onward looking, what am I focused or passionate about now? I'm focused on broadness, which means decentralization. It means ensuring that the operation and usage of this technology is something that is in the hands of everyone. And it's very important for me to stress that this is important to me because too many of the projects that we see today are heading towards a world that is extremely centralized in its operation and developing towards that world. And I want to say, and I'm saying this again, from a point of view of conviction, of values, of what I believe should be right. Blockchains without broadness, without true decentralization, without a path that leads credibly to decentralization is, in my view, ultimately a waste of time. If you're going to build on something that cannot really scale in a decentralized and have a credible path to decentralization, you're ultimately heading towards something that will fail. And I think this is what we'll see happening with a lot of the projects that are embracing and opting for protocols and platforms that are essentially centralized. This is not how blockchain will be adopted in the world. And that's at least my current belief and the direction in which I'm trying to lead Starkware. So, let me tell you a little bit about the current state of what we've built. So I already mentioned that we have the highest TPS for any L2 over Ethereum. And every transaction that we ever send is always supported by validity proofs, by Starks. From the very first time we posted anything in production on-chain, which was in the summer of 2020, till this very day. Everything is supported by proofs. The proofs are turned on. They're not something that will be promised to be turned on at some future undetermined future. These things are working today because we really believe that security matters. Now, in addition to that, we have the lowest cost right now of all L2s, and the very next upgrade of our network will probably reduce costs by another factor of like 3 to 5x, making it even lower, but more importantly, preparing for the time when blob prices and gas prices go back and spike. So we want to ensure that on Starknet, users and developers can continue building for everyone to use. Okay. Further down the line, we're working very hard on STU, which is the next generation prover. It is defined over a very small field, a 32-bit prime field, and it will probably be the fastest prover out there. We'll support things like client-side proving and a whole bunch of other things, reducing costs. It is smashing records in terms of its performance and even leading to the changes in roadmaps of projects based on this. If you're a developer, you care about expressibility and how good is the UX. We have native account abstraction, which leads to very good UX. We have the next generation Rust-inspired smart contract language, Cairo. It is very stable, usable, safe, ergonomic. We're going to turn on volition, which means that you can opt to choose between different data availability solutions. You can put things on-chain. You can put them on various data availability layers. And we'll support privacy down the line. We already have semi-privacy in the meaning that if you operate a system and submit Stark proofs for it, then you get privacy of the from everyone but the operator. And we also have support for all of the number theoretic-based privacy constructions, things like Roth16, Plonks, and things like that, very efficiently on top of Starknet. Our creativity is leading others to be very creative and innovative. So we have the best, we have currently probably the best UX among all L2s on top of Ethereum, and one of the best UXs generally speaking. And I urge you to try out either the Argent wallet or the Bravos wallet. They have Web 2 UX, but Web 3 security, fully self-custodial, very innovative. If you haven't done so, please download these wallets and check them out for yourself and see. We have Uniswap version 4 is actually live for probably something like a year on top of Akubo, which is the very best and most efficient automatic market maker, already in production for many months, having things like TWAMs, time-weighted average market makers, and we also have Paymaster with the Avenue DEX aggregator that is used by a lot of other projects in order to onboard users in a way, for instance, to play games without ever having to pay anything, because the Paymaster can take care of it. We have automatic LP strategies run by an AI agent that is proved and updated on-chain. That's Heiko. Again, these things you will find nowhere else other than on Starknet. And we have provable game engine for online games. So for instance, the 850 TPS that we experienced 2 weeks ago was based on a game that ran on top of cartridge, made use on top of this platform, made use of Paymaster so that people don't have to actually spend any money while playing the game. All of this innovative stuff is already on top of Starknet. We have verifiable machine learning models. Everyone's talking now about the combination of AI and crypto. The one place where it has existed first and is flourishing is on Starknet. And all of this is because of this conviction, innovation, the set of values that drove us to head where we're heading. So I want to, if I can give you some advice on how to answer your number one question, which is how should you spend your time and what should you focus on. So my advice to you, the first, 3 tips. First of all, don't think about things like money and revenue and stuff like that. Think about values, your values. Where do they lead you? What is it that you are passionate about? It is far more important than thinking about, how you will make money off of it. Follow your values, okay? The other thing is never think short term. Focus on T equals infinity. Think into the horizon. Again, there are like these waves, speculative waves. It used to be NFTs. Now there's meme coins. I mean, sure, if your values lead you to be extremely, let's say, if you think very highly of meme coins today and you think that this satisfies something very important for you, by all means, you should follow that. But if your values lead you elsewhere, again, look at T equals infinity. Where is this, heading? Where should you aim your number one scarce asset, which is your time and your focus? And the last thing is, if you're convinced about something, follow your conviction. Don't be swayed by, the myriad things that come and go. But be consistent at it, because there are very few things that reached high level of success that throughout the path didn't look like crazy ideas, right? Very few things, you have an idea, it immediately succeeds. That's not the way it goes. So follow your conviction to where it leads you. I I can share with you my own, so my values, which are also to a large extent the values of Starknet and Starkware, are values of integrity, not just in the math that we deliver, but also in our actions and conduct. Broadness, which means decentralization, thinking hard about how to make sure that whatever we're doing doesn't end up in the hand of very few. Individual empowerment, that's what blockchain is all about. And meritocracy, which means people who are more excellent should be given more power. When I focus on infinity, I think of one thing. I actually imagine a world in which integrity is never assumed. It's not something you assume that a bank has or some institution has. It is rather something that is constantly displayed publicly and transparently and upheld by the public, which is what blockchains deliver and what Starks deliver at much greater scale. And my conviction is that the ZK Stark technology is going to be the enabler of the integrity web, which will be this layer that sits on top of the web in which we all trust and which allows us once again in the digital world to own our life, to own our actions, to own our assets in a way that we cannot do it in the current world. So that's my conviction, and everything we're doing is heading towards that world. So I actually want to end with my current number 2 questions. So your number 1 question and my number 1 question is, what should I focus my time on? But here are like some lower order questions that I hope may interest you. And if you have any suggestions or thoughts about them, please talk to us and go implement it on, well, I hope on Starknet, but you can also implement it elsewhere. So here's question number 1. If you have, as you do have right now, massive, cheap, online, on-chain compute, how do you translate it into more DeFi value? So within gaming and on-chain gaming, there's a very natural connection. Oh, give me more cheap compute on-chain, I will put more on-chain gaming activity. But what do you do with DeFi? So can you take more compute and convert it to more liquidity? Can you reduce MEV with more compute? Can you get greater capital efficiency? This is a second order question. The first order question is what you should focus your life on, but it could be, solving this correctly could actually lead to a lot of revenue for whoever solves this. The second question is, can massive, cheap on-chain computation help solve fragmentation? Fragmentation of liquidity is a very big problem. Can we use, throw more computation on-chain in order for people just to have one place in which they can, transact and do whatever they want? So, we have some thoughts on this. We're trying to also settle Starknet on Bitcoin, not just on Ethereum. But of course, this is not the end game. This needs to end at a place where, just like the internet, we don't care about the various infrastructures out there. It just all works seamlessly. We need to have something similar with blockchain. The question is, can on-chain compute help with that? The third question is more of a sort of economics question. How do we ensure, as we deploy things like app chains and proving networks and things like that, how do we ensure that value from all of this technology accrues back to Starknet? Because I do assume that Starknet will be the gold standard. And a lot of the core technology components within it, things like Starks and Cairo and Fry and Volition, will be just global standards. So the question is, how can we drive, while opening everything up, open sourcing, how can we drive value to accrue to Starknet, constituents, specifically through things like tokenomics and devonomics and, a portion of fees and of minting going to parties that are advancing Starknet. And with this, I will end. Thank you very much.